He was born beautiful and surrounded by love. But after the revolution broke in his home country, Iran, he was forced to move to boarding school at the age of 10 to England. This was a big move because he wasn't surrounded by family anymore. And it was the first time that he realized that you have to trust in something more divine than just human beings. But it was not then that his inward journey began. First, he went on to conquer the fashion world by becoming one of the first male supermodels. He sizzled as the face of Versace, Guess, Levi's. He made us drool as Madonna's topless love interest in her video, Express Yourself. Then after a chance meeting with Nelson Mandela, he decided to give up the high life and journey inwards to find a greater purpose and balance. He studied in various schools and trained in ashrams in India. He read and even wrote several books deconstructing the 500,000-year-old wisdom of Ayurveda in easy-to-understand terms, and slowly became the most sought-after yoga and Ayurvedic therapist and the go-to guru for all of Hollywood. So if you're really stressed or having a major crisis, or the time has come for you to make that big change in your life, and you have the will and, of course, the cash, then he will move in with you, take stock of your life, change your goals, your diet, your life, and put you right back on track. Please put your hands together to welcome Yogi Cameron. Yogi Cameron, you're quite particular about being called Yogi.
Yes.
Why is that? I mean, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Is it because you want to honor the journey that you've come from, or is it to remind yourself of who you need to be?
I think both. You know, I used to be Cameron in the fashion business, and then that was sort of my outward journey of beauty. And once I went on the inner beauty journey, I added Yogi just to remind myself that I'm on this journey.
Was there an actual trigger for you to eventually get on this journey? Or was it a realization that now I need to find a 2.0 version of myself since my modeling days are going to come to an end?
Yeah. Well, I'd just gone to Nelson Mandela's home, and we were doing a Gianni Versace benefit show. And I sort of looked around the room and I thought, you know, I've done so much, but I don't know so much about my inner self. I've sort of read about it, I do yoga, but I haven't gone on that inner journey. I've sort of conquered the outer journey. And at that point, and I met Nelson Mandela and I spoke to him, and you know, I was looking at this guy and I was saying, you know, he's been in jail 27 years and he's so peaceful and he's so kind and so gentle, and I don't think anybody else could do that. I went back to New York, I stopped modeling, and I started to go on the inner journey. And then I came to India. I came to India about 2003. I had read about Ayurvedic medicine, I was doing some yoga, and the first thing, you know, Dr. Vasudeva, who I was studying with, said to me is, mind and body cannot be separated. You have to study Ayurvedic medicine with yoga. That's the completion of two. You can't separate them. And at that time, I took the inner journey.
You talked about seeing Nelson Mandela and seeing how peaceful he was. Is it also because the life of a supermodel is the complete polar opposite of that, because you're in such a fickle world of, you know, highs and lows, drugs, starvation, indulgence? Talk to us about that a little bit.
You know, the fashion business is fast. There's no other business, Bollywood, Hollywood, it's all pretty slow compared to the fashion business. Fashion is quick, you know, every 6 months something new comes out. So it's going to have the highs, the lows, the worst and the best of everything. And it has the greatest of people in it and the terrible people in it. It's kind of like the best of that movie that takes you on a roller coaster ride, and at the end you feel fulfilled because you've got it all. It's like anything in life, you got to choose, right? There's the best and worst of people. You might be in an office and you work with great people, horrible people. You have to choose. And a lot of us are going to just attract what we put out. So it's really not about what's out there, drugs and everything like that. It's about what do we choose? What are we thinking about? Where's our mind? Then we're going to attract all the things that we do. So it really has nothing to do with the world itself and the people. It has to do with what we're thinking about and what we want. And then we're bringing all of that to ourselves. And that's at the core of what yoga is. Think those things and then they'll come your way.
But, you know, for a young person, let's say, who, because that's been your career, so let's talk about that for a second, that if a young person wants to be a supermodel, but yet doesn't want to lose themselves, wants to be centered and, you know, live the yogi code, as you say, how do they do it in practical terms? Because you still have to chase the, you know, the next casting, the big roles, there's a casting couch sometimes. You got to play the game. How do you balance both?
Well, if you want to go into the jungle, there's wild animals, right? You can't say, I want to go into the jungle and I want to go into the forest, but I don't want to be attacked. Well, I can't guarantee that, right? I want to jump in the water, but I don't want to get wet. It's not possible, right? So there's a terrain that goes with every job, you know, with Bollywood, with Hollywood, with corporate life, with Wall Street. You go in it knowing that it already exists and that you have to find your rhythm within it. You can't expect that world to be different. You can't go in there and say, I'm going to change it. You have to say, how am I going to live within peacefulness within it? And it's kind of a challenge, but it's a nice challenge, you know.
But I still don't understand. Like, if I want to be able to, let's say, I love my wine, I love my food, I love an occasional late night, I'm ambitious. Does it mean I have to forego my health and well-being? I cannot have both? Or can I? How do I do both?
Well, you're talking about balance, right? You want balance in life, or do you not?
After meeting you, I suppose I do want balance because you make me feel anxious about not wanting balance, you know?
I think across the board, everybody wants balance, right? You have to find your own balance. You can't compare it to mine or yours. You know, we have to find, where is it? You know, ayurvedic medicine doesn't say be healthy. It says, here is how you can be healthy. Now choose your level of health. You know, in my first book, The Guru in You, I wrote about a friend of mine. You know, I'd come back from India, I'd living in Spain at the time, and he would, you know, come over to my house and he'd be like, okay, let's go out. You know, and I'd be like, well, you know, I got some sadhana to do and stuff, and then he'd go to my fridge and he opened it up and said, you don't have anything in the fridge, what's wrong with you? You're not eating, you know. So he was always thinking I was extreme, and I was always thinking he's so extreme, right? But in the end, we agreed that I have found my balance, he's found his balance. Now, if we want to interact, we've got to meet somewhere in the middle, right? But we got to be okay with it. You know, once I'm grounded in my balance, I can go anywhere, and it doesn't matter what anybody's doing. People can be doing drugs and drinking and staying up late. It doesn't matter. It's just when I'm not balanced and I don't feel balanced, then I'm upset with the world, you know, and that's extreme. I have to first find the balance within myself. So you have to be comfortable with yourself and your balance, and then mingle with everybody else in their imbalance or balance.
So you make it sound very simple, but I've been binge watching your videos and your interviews, and it seems like a lot of effort. I mean, there are things like room temperature, how to tune into your body all the time, how much quantity, what you're eating, how fast you're eating, how slow you're eating, what your mental state is. At the end, isn't it just a bit narcissist even to be thinking all the time about well-being? I wonder.
I'm a yogi on the path. I need to do that. It's a part of just naturally it comes to me. For you, it's unnatural because you've got so many things going on. Health is not, you know, at the top of your priority, but health is at the top of my priority. You know, here we're talking about politics, entertainment, well-being. We're talking about everything, but in the end, if you don't have your health, you can't enjoy anything. You can't enjoy the food you're eating. You can't enjoy the interactions. Health should be at the top of your list, because if you're in bed sick, what are you going to do? You can't go to work, you can't interact, you can't do anything. So it's really, even when we're talking about environment, it should really be environmental health, your own individual health, economic health. It should be all of the health sort of mixed together and finding a balance within it. That's the balanced way of living, ultimately. If one of those is out of balance, we won't feel good.
So let's start with something that's really important for health, sleep.
Yeah.
And we've become a planet of bad sleepers. I don't know anyone, does everyone sleep well in this room? How do people sleep? Tell me, raise your hand if you're a bad sleeper for any reason. Not bad. I thought there'd be more. Okay. So
No, the rest of them are asleep.
wake up. So how much is the right amount of sleep? What is the biggest culprit for sleeping badly, and what can we do to fix it?
So Ayurveda will say that sleep is individual, depending on your dosha. So if you're more of kapha dosha, which is earthiness, you need to sleep less because you already got the earthy balance. If you're more of vata dosha and you're moving a lot and your life is full and your mind is moving a lot, you need to sleep a little bit more. And then you have to see in the moment, how much sleep do I need? Because if you're exhausted, well, you need some sleep. But then you need deep sleep. You could sleep 9 hours and not get rest. So it's not exactly the amount of sleep, it's the quality of sleep that you get. That's why when people take a pill and they sleep, the body's sleeping, but the mind is still moving. So you can sleep 4 hours of deep sleep and feel completely refreshed, and you could sleep 9 hours and get no rest. So it's really, really individual. Everything we do is individual. That's why I said the balance for you is individual. You have to know your own balance. Nobody can tell you that. I can't tell you that.
So what is the biggest culprit for bad sleep, and how do we what is the first step we can take to fix it?
I think we've gone past the stage where, the trend has been, and you pick up a magazine and it will say the 5 things to do or the 1 thing to do. I think we've gone past that stage environmentally. There's no more let's just do 1 thing. And physically and mentally, we've gone past that stage where it's just do 1 or 2 things. It doesn't work anymore. And we see that. It's really about a lifestyle change. We have to make the change. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It has to be about, I have to get good sleep. I have to have a good diet. I have to have a good amount of work. I have to have a good amount of play. I have to have a good amount of good relationship, in my family and my spousal relationship. So it's a balance of all of it. If we don't have a balance in one area, it's going to create a balance in another area. So typically, if things are not going well at home, you stay, more at work. So you're imbalanced now in your work and in your relationship. So it's more about the whole lifestyle thing. It's not about just do 1 or 2 things.
Okay, so I've decided I want to make that change. What is my first step?
Okay. So the place that you're the most imbalanced is probably, let's say, if you don't sleep well, that might be too far. We can't get to that. We have to have a success. So maybe your diet is quicker. We can change that quicker. So if we change your diet and that affects your sleep, now we're on our way. So we have to find the thing within you which is the closest thing that we can change, not the furthest thing. Because the furthest thing you're going to be sort of at odds with. But if we can change that little thing that you're willing to change, because it's your willingness to change, that matters. If I'm trying to work with you and you're showing resistance, I shouldn't go there. I should go with the thing that you're willing and say, sure, I'll do that. We'll change that. And then we'll go for the next thing. For some people it's diet, for some people it's sleep, for some people it's exercise. It just depends. It's so individual.
Now, you move into people's homes to find out what is that thing that they can change and willing to change and assess their whole life.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, we either hate or fall in love with the messenger and not just the message. And given the way that you look, have there been occasions where your clients want more than just your counsel?
You mean, do they attack me?
No,
Yes.
I mean, do they fall in love with you?
At times.
And
It
then
just
what do you do with that?
Oh, you can diffuse that. It's not a problem.
Because, you know, in India we have a real, how would I say, a blind devotion to a guru. We use the guru as a crutch. We have, the disciple-guru relationship is very complex. Do you have anything to elaborate about that? Because you've been here long enough to study that.
Yeah. If you fall in love with your guru in a sort of romantic way, it's probably not the right guru. If you fall in love with the guru in a passionate way, but it's not sexual, it's not in that way, then it's probably the right guru. So if I'm working with you and you fall in love with me, then something I'm doing, not something you're doing. You know, so it's never happened to me in that sense.
And your own guru, even though you said, I'm really happy now, I've found my peace here. This was Dr. Vasudev when you worked with him.
He's my Ayurvedic guru.
He's your Ayurvedic. But he forced you and almost coaxed you into going out there and saying, look, given the way that you look, given the connections that you have, go take that message to the West. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, you know, when I came to India and I studied and I'd stayed there a long time, you know, you suddenly feel in this place of bliss. And I was having a conversation with him and I said, you know, I'm thinking of staying in India and being here. And he said, well, what are you going to do here? And I said, well, you know, I'll meditate. And he said, well, that's useful because I've taught you all this thing for like nearly 10 years and now you're going to just meditate. So it was kind of the wrong answer. And he said, you know, Devi, God, you know, whatever you want to call the divine, has taken this body and it looks a certain way. It came from the fashion business. You have to go and use it. And the best place for you is in Hollywood and that side of the world because they will react to you in a certain way and listen to you. Maybe they won't listen to me, but they'll listen to you because, you know, how you look and the physique is important to them. So he was the one who said, just go and be there because actually I wanted to stay here and be here because India is more like home to me, you know. So I think it shows that all of us have to use what we're given. That's the most important thing because this body is like clothing. You know, this is one set of clothing on top of a clothing. So we have to use what we're given and that's the way we make the biggest impact.
And you've made quite an impact in Hollywood. I mean, your clients read from Ellen DeGeneres onwards. What is it about you that you have as a guru or as a therapist that others don't? What sets you apart according to you?
I think my past, you know, being in the fashion world, people relate to me. It's all about relatability, right? I relate to my guru because I lived in Iran. I was growing up in a very sort of not backward way, but it's like it was a very third world country. So I looked towards a very authentic, particular kind of teacher. So being from the fashion world, sort of like beauty icon and all that, they relate to me. So they say, oh, if you can do it and you've done it and it's not so strange. Because a lot of the yoga practices, Ayurvedic treatments and stuff, they can be very strange, you know. So, but
tell me the strangest one that you've done.
Well, you know, when you're doing vomiting therapy or you're doing these kind of things, you know, it's very strange. Actually, when I was with Ellen DeGeneres, I lived in a house for about 4 months, took care of her health. And one day I was doing all these treatments for her, and she's like, you're not doing an enema, are you? There's no way we are doing that. And we're not vomiting, okay? None of those two things, because I read all about that, you know.
Did she do it?
No. So there's a limit to everybody's sort of freedom with that.
You know what was very interesting to me was your take on water. Because for me it's always been, there's no such thing as too much water, but for you there is.
Yeah, again, it's individual, you know. I think since the media sort of 20, 25 years, 30 years ago, we've come out with a lot of trends. And the media is the first one that reports on it. And we've come out with all these different things like you have to take 2,000 calories a day, 2 liters of water a day, this amount of fat. And it really is not true. It's very individual in each moment. You know, I don't really sweat. I sweat a very little bit. So I don't really drink water. I drink maybe 2 or 3 cups of herbal tea a day. I have a chai and things like that. But I don't drink water. Whereas somebody...
I never heard a yoga teacher tell me don't drink water.
I know. Well, because I'm also not doing hot yoga and sweating a lot and physical. You know, I do a few postures. I mainly do breathing practices, mantras, yantras, and I'm doing, you know, some tantric practices. But that you're not sweating. In yoga, you shouldn't be sweating, you know.
Tell me about your love for ghee. He's somebody who puts ghee in his nostrils before he takes a flight because otherwise you get really dehydrated? Is that what I was thinking about this on my long flight here, but...
Ghee, yeah. Ghee is like one of those magic cures for so many different things. I know you use it in your cooking, but in Ayurvedic medicine it's called snehana. Snehana is the lubrication of the joints, of the channels, the nadis of the body. And it's one of those magic things. So when you eat it, it does one thing. But when you melt it and you start to drink it with some water, or especially with milk, for example, at nighttime, and you add some, you know, different spices, it becomes like medicine. So in Ayurveda, we're using absolutely everything as medicine. And ghee has so many different properties, you know, digestion, for example. If you want to correct your digestion, just taking a little bit of ghee that's melted and you take it with a little bit of hot water, you know, it's amazing. It does amazing things for you. And lubrication of the joint, for example, as we get older, there's very little ways of getting into the joints. And ghee is one of the ways that we can get into them.
Now, as a planet, again, we're obsessed with remaining younger and younger and healthier and healthier. Why can't we just allow ourselves to creak and fall apart naturally? I mean, why do we have to go through all this, like, you know, I want to be fitter, I want to be younger?
I don't know. It's you know, I don't think you want to fall apart.
I mean, it's Mother Nature, isn't it? We're all going to fall apart. It's the one inevitability of...
Yeah. Well, death and decay and everything is inevitable, but we can go at a speed that we can still enjoy life. Because the stress of life is so much that we would break down this body way too quickly. So we would have 40, 50-year-olds just debilitated. So we have to, you know, be on top of it because there's way too much stress in the world. And stress is the worst thing. It breaks down the nervous system, it breaks down the immune system and the digestive system. So we wouldn't be able to operate. You'd just basically be a vegetable for 20, 30 years. You would still be alive, but you'd just be broken.
Okay, so what we're going to do for all of you right now is a tiny little breathing practice.
Sure.
That anyone and everyone can start or end their day with, or any time.
We're going to correct the breathing. You know, full breath, three-part yogic breath is the correct way of breathing. Most people don't breathe. You know, most of you will not be breathing properly because you're not using the full capacity of your lungs. So really what we're going to do is do a breathing technique, but we're going to correct the breathing. Okay, so sit up tall. Sit up in your chair, shoulders back. Yeah. The reason you do this is because the spine needs to be straight when you're doing your breathing practice. So I'll do it sideways as well so you can see the stomach is going to come out like this. So you got to pop it out and the chest has got to pop out. So when you inhale completely into the stomach, into the chest. And when you exhale, the chest goes down and you suck the stomach in all the way for a full breath. So you inhale and you exhale, the chest relaxes and you bring in the stomach all the way. So your shoulders don't move, your shoulders are still straight, your chest is open. You really expand the stomach as much as you can, the chest as much as you can. And you relax as you exhale. So close the eyes so you internalize. So you're inhaling the stomach out, the rib cage to the side and the chest out. You're exhaling the chest and you pull the stomach in all the way for a full breath. One more round, inhale. Exhale the chest rib cage, and pulling the stomach as far as you can for the full breath. Good. So if we had taken your heart rate, for example, your heart rate would have come down and your blood level would have come down as well. So it is very simple but miraculous.
So if there was a silver bullet that all of us could take every day from Ayurveda, what would it be? Would it be haldi, ghee? Tell us the one thing that we can take every day, starting today, that will change our well-being.
Yeah, turmeric should be a part of your diet. Ginger should be a part of your diet, simply because they're like a medicine cabinet unto their own. Ghee should be in your diet as well. And then there's many different preparations in Ayurveda that should be in your diet as well. And the beautiful thing is you live in India, so all of this stuff is available to you in a moment. And you probably got a lot of these things at home already. You know, you should talk to your grandparents. The grandparents know all this stuff. It's just the modern living, we've forgotten it, you know. But when I lived in Iran, you know, we had a cold, grandparents would take licorice, help the digestion and things like that. So speak to your grandparents, they know all of this stuff.
Absolute last question. If you had to give an Ayurvedic tip to Prime Minister Modi, what would it be?
You know, the beautiful thing is Modi has a sadhana. That's the interesting thing. And, you know, from what I hear from everybody, he's a great ruler and he's pretty sattvic. And he says he gets up every day and he does his sadhana. And somebody like me who's foreign comes here to train and be with Guru and do the sadhana every morning. And really, when we're talking about balanced politics, balanced environmental health, balanced health for ourselves, really for somebody like me, it starts in the morning. I get up early, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I do my sadhana. Because if I get up in the morning and I grab my tea and coffee and my paper and my phone, now the outside world has my attention. It took my attention. But if I do my sadhana, I go inward, and now Devi, that God within me, has my attention. That will speak to me. Atma. Atma will tell me what it wants me to do in this body. And that's the difference. So if you don't have a sadhana, you should train and have it. And for you who do, you know the difference it makes when you wake up in the morning. You're a much more sattvic person when you go out into the world after doing your sadhana.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.